my dad never really had a typical job. I know this because some weeks he'd show up with thousands of dollars in a plastic packet that he'd hide under the bed. Growing up, I always thought my dad was pretty cool. Sure, I was a child and didn't really know what was going on most of the time. I did, however, notice that my dad had a unique way of creating problems as well as solving them. Looking back, I happened to notice some things that would raise a few eyebrows. Here are just a few of those stories. The parking incident. Once when I was a teenager, my dad was giving me a ride to a friend's party. It was probably around 11 p.m. and quite dark. As we pulled up, I started looking around for a place to park. My dad, on the other hand, stopped the car while double parked, got out, left the door open, and walked away. What? It took me a couple of seconds to even gather my senses. I was like, what the frick-frack paddywhack is he doing? I got out of the car to chase after him. As soon as I did, the guy in charge of ticketing cars got in through the open door and took the car away to park it for him. Let me summarize. A government official left his post for a double-parked car, with its doors open and keys in the ignition, not to ticket it but to park it for my dad, who had already walked off. While we were walking away, I heard him tell his colleague, "Let them know sir is here." Sir? What sir? My dad is a stockbroker. The big coconut incident. My friends and I had successfully graduated from high school and had planned a trip to a different city together. It would be our first out-of-city journey where we'd be on our own. My mother was quite concerned, but my dad had no issues with the whole agenda. A few days before we were scheduled to leave, my buddy and I were hanging out at my place. Quite late into the night, my dad shows up and asks us about our plans for the trip. The conversation was all casual and only lasted a few minutes until he asked us if we wanted a secret agent to follow us in case we got into trouble. What? Apparently, my dad has a close friend who worked at a high-level intelligence agency. He explained that he has active field experience and could tail us in disguise if we wanted. If that wasn't enough, my dad said this person went by Big Coconut as he had a large head. This explanation raised more questions than it answered. My dad owns the city. There used to be a time when my dad would have connections in all the major bars and clubs of the city. I've heard stories of him getting phone calls from various waiters, managers, and owners at these clubs regarding the whereabouts of our family members. We didn't know who any of these people were, but they all knew us. And they knew who to call. So, was my dad in the mafia?